to partner together and look at other pathways to help collaborate and bring more opportunities for businesses who have a desire to hire individuals with disabilities. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our first presenter, and that's Leslie Fuentes. Leslie Fuentes is a regional business specialist for the Department of Rehabilitation. And Leslie, take it away.
Thank you, Della, for that introduction. So as Della mentioned, I am the regional business specialist for the Greater East Bay. I work with our entire district, so I cover 3 different counties: Alameda County, Solano County, and Contra Costa County. So today we are going to talk about what's in it for the business. DOR does have information and supports that we can do for credits and incentives that we can help businesses with. So I'm going to move on to my next slide. Okay. So the first incentive I want to talk about is WOTC. So it's the Work Opportunity, let me break this down, tax credit. So the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, also known as WOTC, is a federal tax credit incentive of up to $9,600 available to employers for hiring an employee and employing individuals for certain targeted groups who face significant barriers to employment. So WOTC has 2 different purposes. The first is to promote the hiring of individuals who qualify as a member of the targeted group and to provide a federal tax credit to employers who hire these individuals. There are 10 targeted groups that qualify, and I'll provide Suzanne with a document after this meeting that she can share that has a list of all of the targeted groups that qualify. And I'll mention a few now. So a few of them would be if you have a recipient of TANF, so the Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, or qualified veterans can qualify, a designated community resident, vocational rehabilitation referrals. So we do have the ability to sign off on the WOTC form, which I'll go over the process on the next slide. But some more of the targeted groups would be qualified summer youth ages 16 through 17 who reside in an empowerment zone, qualified food stamp recipients, qualified recipients of supplemental security income, so SSI, long-term family assistant recipients, and qualified long-term employment recipients, just to name a few. So under each of those categories, there are some stipulations. So in the document that I will provide, and you can also have this PowerPoint too, because the targeted groups is hyperlinked and it'll take you directly to the website so you can see all of the groups that qualify. So our process. So we have a little bit different process compared to what you can do online. So as DOR, we are eligible to sign off on the WOTC form. So our process is a little bit different than logging on online and doing the process yourself. So for DOR, we have 2 forms that must be filled out. The first form is the IRS 8850 form, which is a pre-screening notification and certification request. And then the second form, which we sign, is the 9062, which is a conditional certification WOTC form. Once both forms are filled out, then they both need to be mailed to EDD. So there is another process. You can go on the EDD website and then submit the information online. But I'm not too familiar with that process since we have our own process. So if you are interested in the WOTC credit, then please let us know and we'll provide you with the correct forms to mail in. Also, the 9062, ideally, we would want both of these forms mailed off at the same time. So from the day that the individual is hired, the employer has 28 days to mail out these forms. So it's a pretty quick process at the beginning. So the next incentive I want to talk about is tax incentives for providing businesses accessibility. So there's 2 tax credits also available through the IRS. So the first tax credit is the small business tax credit, IRS code section 44. And this is the disabled access credit. So this credit is intended for small businesses. They may take an annual tax credit for making their business accessible to persons with disabilities. So small businesses that in a previous year earned a maximum of 1 million in revenue or had 30 or fewer full-time employees qualified. And the amount of the credit is 50% of expenditures over $250, not to exceed $10,250. So again, I will provide you with the links and information sheet for this tax credit, because there's a whole, there's some stipulations to it. And you can find out more about exactly what the tax credit or how much money you would be able to qualify. So the second tax credit is the architectural transportation tax deduction, IRS code section 190. And this is for burial removal. So all businesses are eligible to take an annual deduction for expenses incurred to remove physical, structural, and transportation, so vehicle-related barriers for persons with disabilities at the workplace. So who's eligible? Small businesses that in a previous year, oh, actually, no, it's the same one. Sorry about that. So who is eligible for this amount? Pretty much all businesses are eligible to take the annual deduction for the expenses incurred. And the tax deduction is up to $15,000 a year. Both of these tax incentives can be combined. And the form that needs to get filled out is form 8826, which again is linked on this PowerPoint, and I'll provide you with like a fact sheet for both of these incentives. And next we have OJT. So on-the-job training. On-the-job training is a funding that is available to offset the cost of providing training to a job seeker who is a DOR consumer. So in our case, so a DOR participant. Generally, DOR offers employers up to $1,500 for OJT, but more than that amount may be provided if the consumer needs more training than usual. Or the position has like a higher level of skill requirement. So there are 3 forms that need to be filled out for OJT. There is a DOR 247, which is the letter of agreement, the STD 204, and a DOR 226. So the goal of OJT is to keep the consumers hired on as an employee at the conclusion of the OJT contract, but it's a non-binding agreement as well. So, ideally, we would love for the participant in the OJT to stay on after the training period. So, that's the end of day goal for OJT. If you would like more information about all of the tax incentives that I spoke about, you can visit our website. So if you go to www.dor.ca.gov, and then you click on I am interested, business services, and private employers, then you will see all of the incentives that I spoke about listed, including the links to find the forms and for like the Q&A and more questions that can be answered. Next, we have our website. So, you can reach us at our website, or if you're interested in contacting one of our local offices, we do have our office locator link on here. And we're all over social media. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and even YouTube. So now I'm going to open it up to questions.
Leslie, I have a question. Many of us, the youth that we work with, transportation is probably one of the biggest barriers that we have, getting them to and from work. Even though we do provide mobility training, but our bus system, our transportation system in Solano County can be quite tedious, and it can take a long time to get like from Vallejo just down to the mall even. So on that transportation tax credit, if an employer pays for transportation for an individual, let's just say an Uber, for, for, I don't know, like 20 times in 1 year, can they actually put in for reimbursement for that since it's up to 15,000, or is that a stretch?
I would have to get back to you on that question, because there's a lot of there's some stipulations to the transportation tax credit. So I'll write that down and then I'll send you an email about that.
That would be like a huge asset for us if we could tell an employer that we could guarantee the youth would have transportation to and from work by them simply giving them an Uber and turning around and get reimbursed for it some way. Yeah, so that'd be great if you could let us know about that. And I'm sure some of the other Susans that are on here may have some questions, so fire away, you guys. Or not.
Leslie, I'll just say thank you. That was a really nice presentation. I'm even familiar with it and I learned a few things, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. No, a lot of people, I think. Oh.
I'm sorry, Sheila usually has some pretty good questions. Are you good, Sheila? And she's currently working with an employer that's a new employer that really had a lot of questions regarding all this.
I do have several questions. A couple regarding to in regards to the transportation. I think before I ask questions, I'd like to read up on it a little bit more. Am I understanding that the forms, the IRS 8850 and the DOL 962 can be found on your website, at the DOR website?
Yes, they can be found on our, well, it'll link you to where you can find it, but I'm going to send off the forms. I'm going to send them to Suzanne. So in an email, I'll send the PowerPoint, the links, the fact sheets, and then the forms for all of the tax incentives.
Okay, so that leads me to the next section of my questions, in that generally when we job develop according to the interests of the individual, and we don't divulge their disability, or even that they have a disability. Most times we talk about their abilities and what they can bring to the employer. It sounds to me like this is a conversation about the employers or the participants' eligibility for this tax credit would require us to kind of have a conversation about the fact that this individual does have a disability, and that disability does qualify the employer for the tax credit.
Yes, it will, because there's like certain there's the pre-screening form, which I'm gonna actually try to pull it up right now. So give me 1 second. I have to sign into the security of my computer. Which
that's the IRS 8850.
Yes, let me pull up the pre-screening form. Is the 8850, and then the 9062 is the form that we signed. Because if you go onto the IRS website, there is a 9061 form, but that's not for DOR. So anybody that's like in network has the 9062 form, and then so when EDD gets these forms, they know that the 9062 form comes from one of the agencies that's eligible to sign for these forms. So let me pull up exactly what it looks like.
And can we pre-screen participants prior to placement?
Mm-hmm. If they qualify for DOR services, then they'll be eligible for OJT. But me one sec. My Z-scaler is okay.
So any participant with any disability would qualify. It's not specific to, say, ID or,
Not specific.
And Department of Rehab can only sign off on the form if the individual is a participant of DOR?
No. We can sign it for,
Okay.
I mean, well, if they would have to show us that, they're eligible,
So,
first, but
So
yes.
an
we can
example
sign.
would be, so if an individual has, let's just say anxiety, and we have a letter from the doctor saying that they have anxiety and they're not a participant Department of Rehab, Department of Rehab can still sign off that the WOTC form, or I'm gonna call it WOTC because that's, I think, the one that's probably the most enticing for businesses. So would you be able to, with a letter from a doctor, sign off the 9062 for an individual that's not a participant of DR but does have a disability?
Leslie, we should check with workforce and we should see if that is doable for us. I know it with our process, we're eligible and able to do that for LEAP candidates. They don't necessarily have to be enrolled in our program. But for this one, with this tax credit incentive, we need to find out from maybe our legal and workforce.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
Okay.
I too was thinking of LEAP. I do have a couple of questions about the OJT once we finish up with the 962.
I'm good unless anybody else has any other questions.
Susan, I have a couple of questions myself. First of all, thank you, Leslie, for your presentation. Much appreciated. And Della for joining us today too, as well. I'm not real clear here. Does DOR have a list of applicants that you've been working with and training with to get back into the workforce that's available for businesses to select from, for applicants to apply for a job? And then secondly, if a business is to participate in a program like this and gets all the documentation that you've shown us filled out and signed, how long of the process is it before everything's finalized and money starts flowing and whatnot?
Well, let me take the first part. Let me take the first part. I can take the first part with regards to Monty. I can take the first part regards to list of people ready for possible employment or OJT training opportunities. We have caseloads of individuals. We have individuals who come to us, daily, whether by online presence or through one of the programs such as Susan's program through the school districts. We have folks who are on our rosters because they have barriers to employment and they need educational and vocational training to assist them. So yes, let's say I can remember just years ago with TPP, somebody wanted to work at and I'm sorry, my puppy is barking. We had a locksmith company who wanted to, have somebody to come in and learn how to do that work. This was years ago, back in the early 90s when maybe locksmiths were more prevalent. But we developed an OJT with this company for one of the students to work in that shop and to learn that trade and learn that craft. So yes, we have individuals who have interest in certain career pathways or certain occupations, and sometimes employers have a need and they want to build on that, and we provide that opportunity for them to go and do an OJT. And what I like about this one, that we've made some changes, that 1,500 hours was very limiting and it didn't give a lot of opportunity to advance. So let's say the person they learned the craft, but they also wanted to teach them how to do some of the managerial aspects. Then maybe the OJT would be at a little longer stint or a little higher level of pay because it's a different caliber of training that's going on at the work site. So I hope that helped to clarify how we can identify people that might be appropriate for your businesses.
Very much so. Thank you, Della.
Welcome. So Leslie, I'll let you have the second part of that.
I couldn't really hear the second part of the question.
The second part was if a business participates with the Department of Rehabilitation and hires an applicant and fills out all the paperwork, gets all the signature, how long does it take for that process all that paperwork to be processed and the business to start to see the benefits that you mentioned there as far as tax credits and whatnot.
Mhm. So, from my understanding is that, there has to be monthly reports. So once it's initiated and the paperwork gets submitted, there's progress reports that have to be submitted on a monthly basis. And then someone on, like a service coordinator on our side, will assist with being able to submit those forms. Because I know in Oakland, we had a specific service coordinator that did that. But there isn't really a time frame. I want to say maybe 2-3 weeks, but there really isn't a time frame for us because it just really depends on how many forms EDD is getting, if everything is submitted and correct on the forms. The only time frame that we do have is that within 28 days of their hire date is when the forms should be submitted. I'm sorry, that doesn't really answer your question, but they don't really give us a time frame for, the length of time it can take. But I do have the forms, so I wanted to share my screen to show you what the forms
Can
look
I add
like.
that real quick for Monty's sake and other businesses that might be on? So here in Solano County, we're fortunate that we have through Department of Rehab, we do have a collaborative contract with the County Office of Education to provide services to individuals with disabilities. And our contract specifically, we're allowed to provide services to adults. So if a business suspects that they have an individual with a disability and they're going to need additional supports to be successful at the business, Monty, you can reach out to me. And we will help that individual become a client of Department of Rehab if it's appropriate, and help facilitate some of the services that you might need support with.
Very good. Thank you, both of you.
Della, could you talk about the TAP database, or is it a website that you guys have? Does that still exist?
Oh, thank you, Sheila, for dredging up that one for me. And Leslie might know if it's still, that was I'm just being transparent and honest here. That was a very difficult process. And I'm sorry, my dog is just having a morning this morning, so forgive the yapping in the background. But I believe we still have it, the TAP portal, but how active it is, I'm going to ask Leslie, are we still actively using it? There were times and there was a huge push and we were needing to, be involved a lot. But lately, I've not had as much energy around that. Leslie, are we still looking at the TAP portal in any real way?
We are. So if you do have an individual that is interested in TAP, well, to summarize what TAP is a website that employers can promote their positions for individuals with disabilities. In order to access the TAP website, we have to send you an invitation for TAP, and you have to be a DOR consumer. So those are the two things: DOR consumer, and then we can send you an invite. Well, actually, I send the invite. Once I send the participant an invite, then they'll have access to all the positions on TAP, their resume. So employers are able to see only the participants that have active resumes on TAP. And typically, once a participant fills out the information, enters in their resume, which now they can actually upload their resume to TAP, then I'll either publish it or keep it unpublished if it needs to get fixed. But what employers can tap into all of the resumes that are available in TAP based off of employment goals or the type of positions that the person indicated that they're interested in. But it is definitely still available.
How does the employer have access to that TAP?
So they would contact our workforce development department. It is a website that is paid into, so it's not like a free website. So, if an employer does want to post their jobs, then we can connect you to WDS and then they can start that process.
So could a chamber actually pay and then all of our members have access to TAP?
If you want access to TAP, so there's two different things. If you want to be an employer to post your positions, then it would be like a paid subscription. But if you want access to TAP, then I would have to contact the BDS, because in the past we did allow community partners to have access to TAP. So then, you know, if they're working with our consumers, then they can help with publishing their resumes. But within the last year, there were some changes, and they ended up cleaning up the entire website as far as like the participants that are active, because the participants have to be a DOR consumer. So there was like a lot of changes that were done, and they removed most of our community partners. But you know, it's something that we can ask.
Yeah, can you please ask if a
Mhm.
chamber of commerce could become a member, whatever, even paying for the subscription, and then our members use it from the chamber subscription? Does that make sense, Jared? Yeah, right.
And I just want to add, if all of this sounds really complicated to any businesses, reach out to Leslie or myself if you have need to access CAP, or if you have relationships that you like to develop around your businesses and your hiring needs. And DOR seems to be a kind of a mystique. So please feel free to reach out to Leslie or myself. Thank you.
And just for the businesses that are on, Department of Rehab they serve a very diverse group of disabilities. So it could be, you know, from somebody who has chronic pain issues that really is a barrier to employment, to somebody who's, you know, has autism, somebody who has anxiety, depression, to somebody who has, you know, emotionally disturbed as a barrier. So it's a very huge variety of levels of disability. So I just want to make sure that you're not just thinking it's the most severe individuals that have the needs for Department of Rehab. They actually serve just about anybody who has a barrier through a disability.
Absolutely. And with all kind of employment interest and needs. So thank you, Susan, for adding that.
Della, would you mind maybe you and Leslie posting in the chat your contact information for the group?
Absolutely. We'll do that. I will do that. We will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, underneath that umbrella of participants and individuals with disabilities, you'll find thousands and thousands of people who are very, very capable, and many of them with college degrees.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Absolutely. And years of experience in a field of study where maybe now this acquired disability does not afford them the opportunity to do the same work. So yes, somebody with a PhD who was a archaeologist and a whole bunch of other things may now go into the classroom and teach that, because they're no longer able to go out and do some of the more physical aspects because of an acquired disability. So yes, lots and lots of diversity in our pool of job seekers who have differing abilities.
Can I clarify? For the TAP portal, employers who want to advertise job openings or positions, that part is paid, but not necessarily, this was the part that I wasn't clear, not necessarily for employers who actually want to have access to resumes of individuals who might be qualified for positions that they have available.
Well, they'll have access to posting their jobs, as well as doing like virtual events, and have access to all of the participants in TAP. So I did put my information in the chat.
So I have an OJT question. For a business to participate in an OJT, do they need to submit paperwork prior to that individual's hire? Say, for instance, they hired somebody in October and it's come to their attention that they might need a little more training and or maybe some type of accommodation on their probationary period. Could they then at that point reach out and ask for assistance with the OJT to secure employment for a longer amount of time?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
I guess the first
You
part,
cut out a little bit.
the first part, because it's such a convoluted question, is Does the OJT have to be established prior to hire?
Typically it is, well, because when we promote it, but I'll find out, because usually when we promote on-the-job training is, you know, is because we're vetting an employer that our consumers interested in working at. So, you know, when we do outreach, then, you know, we talk about, you know, not just how great our participant is, but then these are also the tax incentives that, or credits that you can get. So we always promote it at the beginning. So then they have all of the information available to them. So that's how we were trained to do it, to just offer it at the beginning, but I'll double check to see if it has to be done at the beginning or if it can be done, you know, a couple days later. Because with WOTC, it is within 28 days, and they can't be a rehire. So with OJT, you know, since typically we promote it at the beginning, I haven't been asked that question, but I will get back to you.
So the way I think, Sheila, the way I understand is that we would be using it as a retention tool, right? So the individual gets hired without the OJT, but then is struggling. The individual is identified as having a disability and a DOR participant. Can then the employer reach out and say, hey, I need an OJT to keep this person on. If not, I'm gonna have to let them go. Right, Sheila, that's basically.
Yeah, and that kind of boils down to the nature of our job developing in the past and us not divulging that the person has a disability. And on online applications, not all of them have those tax credit questions. So then the employer really doesn't know that that individual is eligible for those credits.
Great question.
Just for point of reference, Sheila, I don't know if you want to put your contact information in the chat for them to get back to you since you're under Susan.
Susan usually forwards everything.
Yeah.
That works too.
Yeah, Sheila is our ace in doing customized development. She doesn't really take credit for it, but she does. And she's actually working right now with a really big employer from a franchisee in Vacaville. And we have 7 students doing a work experience right now. And I was able to do job coaching this weekend with them. And I can tell you what, they were better than the employers that were actually working. And I'm not just saying that. And the great thing is something happened to where they weren't able to do the task that we were assigning them to do. So that we had to give them a more difficult task. And unbelievable, that opportunity, the business owner was able to see that they were capable of a lot more than he thought initially. So great.
Well, and you know, in that population, we do have 7 that are there. We're hoping to roll an 8th one in this week. And 2 of the individuals that actually really showed out in a very positive way have transportation barriers. So they, in our initial conversations with the employer, then they wouldn't have been considered for hire, but went way above in their abilities. So, I mean, they shown, but living in Fairfield and that transportation barrier to get to Vacaville, especially with public transportation, where it would take you pretty close to 2 hours to get where you're going and 2 hours to get home, and you might only be working a 4-hour shift. I'd be interested to know more about the transportation and what we could put in place for the employer to incentivize those people who have barriers to the transportation and to get those jobs and be able to get to work.
Actually, Sheila, hi everybody. My name is Megan Davis. That is a perfect transition into my next presentation. Is it okay if I pick up there and talk about our employability business grant?
Megan, I think so. I was just about to say, I wanted to make sure you had time to do it. It may tie in nicely. So thank you very much. Megan, take it away.
All right. Thank you. So I'll go ahead and I'll share my screen.
And let us know who you are, Megan.
Sure.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so I am Megan Davis. I am the Demand Side Employment Initiative Program Lead, which we'll get into in just a minute. So today I wanted to talk about the Demand Side Employment Initiative, also known as the DSEI, because as a state entity, we love our acronyms. And today I want to focus on the Employability Business Grant. So who on our team with the Department of Rehabilitation is working on this effort? So we have 3 executive sponsors, Jessica Grove, Kim Rutledge, and Sue Pelbath. And then, as I mentioned, I'm Megan Davis, and I am the Demand Side Employment Initiative Program Lead. So I kind of want to get into an overview of what is the Demand Side Employment Initiative, or as I mentioned before, called the DSEI. Well, the Department of Rehabilitation, in conjunction with the Department of Developmental Services, requested a one-time budget change proposal for $20 million, and we were awarded. So DOR is using that half of $10 million to increase employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities by providing incentives for businesses to hire people with disabilities. The DSEI consists of 4 key elements. The first 2 that we're going to be going over today in depth would be the Employability Business Grant and the Targeted Marketing Campaign. The third element is for earn and learn opportunities, where we're creating internships or paid work experiences or apprenticeship programs for up over 150 individuals. And then we're also working in collaboration with SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management, also known as the SHRM Foundation, to create HR training collateral so for our human resources professionals. So we're working not only with businesses to help them through the funding that I'll talk about in a minute, but also working with HR professionals, current or upcoming ones, through our California community college programs, and hiring managers or people managers to get them the reinforcements and trainings that they need as well. All right, so the Employability Business Grant. So we're offering California small and medium-sized businesses grants ranging from $20,000 to $200,000 so that they can expand their businesses and therefore create job opportunities to hire individuals with disabilities. And we're talking about this access to this valuable and diverse talent pool. So I know that Susan kind of mentioned before, there's actually 1.9 million Californians aged 18 to 64 with disabilities in the state of California. And what we're qualifying as a disability is just a physical or mental condition that impacts one of the major activities of life and creates a barrier to employment. So we are keeping that very broad. The funding for the Employability Business Grant is available through June 30th of 2024. So a little less than 20 months now, but we're hoping to get all of this money expended. The Employability Business Grant is our largest portion of the Demand Side Employment Initiative and is offering over $5 million for this effort alone. So now that we have this funding, what are we asking businesses to do? Well, we're asking businesses to commit to employing individuals with disabilities, or we're asking them to provide full-time or part-time ongoing internships so individuals with disabilities can gain meaningful work experience. So back to this first one, because I know that Sheila had brought it up earlier. We're asking businesses to self-report when they're hiring on individuals with disabilities. We're not asking for individuals with disabilities to disclose this information because we know that there can be some negative bias around that. So we're asking businesses to use their best judgment and provide that self-report. Now, obviously, like Della mentioned, we have a large talent pool within our Department of Rehabilitation. And so we are going to support businesses. If they're looking for candidates, we can help with the talent pool of applicants. Although individuals do not have to be DOR consumers in order for this funding to support individuals with disabilities. And I apologize for moving quickly through this. I just want to make sure that we end on time. I also want to make sure that we get through questions. So if I'm moving a little fast, my apologies. Okay. So how can this funding be used? So if I ask for $200,000, what can I use it for? Well, we're asking for businesses, they can use it for consulting services. So we're really trying to reach businesses that maybe haven't done business with DOR before, or maybe have not ever been able to hire individuals with disabilities or aren't sure where to start. So they can hire on consultants to help give them training for inclusive practices like job analysis, interview strategies, and how to write inclusive language on job descriptions, as well as identifying potential placement opportunities for employees with disabilities and how to make work environments more accessible. The next opportunity would be for equipment purchases and training. So this would expand, or this would be purchases to help expand business growth and support more job opportunities that way. And it can also be for acquiring accessibility equipment, both hardware and software. So for equipment purchases, what this means is that, let's say I own a screen printing business and I have one screen printer and I'm just a small operation. Maybe I have 2 employees and one including myself. So if I wanted to be able to bring on a new employee, maybe I can't afford to buy a new screen printer, but I can use this funding to buy a screen printer, and then therefore I'd be able to produce more output. So I can hire someone to come in and work the front of the office. They can take phone orders, they can run the cashier, or if I wanted, I could have them run the additional screen printer as well. And we can cover the training for that individual employee to learn how to use that screen printer. So there's a lot of opportunities here for the equipment purchases. It can be anything from computers, desktops, software, you name it, it can be in there. The next thing that we can cover is new hire costs for individuals with disabilities. So this could include advertising for the position, LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster. We can also cover onboarding costs, which would be your time in reviewing the applications, conducting interviews, as well as the time it takes for both you and the new hire to do the onboarding paperwork. We can also cover training. So let's say, you know, when someone new joins an organization, they have to learn about the culture that's going on within the business, as well as their job duties. And sometimes you might have special trainings as well. So like, for example,
Did Megan freeze or did I freeze? Megan froze.
That's what I was wondering. Megan, I think
Megan
you
froze.
froze.
Yeah, I think we're all okay.
Darn.
Oh, such a great presentation.
I know, right?
Yeah, this is a wonderful opportunity here.
There she is.
There we
okay,
go.
sorry about that, everybody. So where did I cut off? My apologies.
Right there at the new hire slide.
Okay, great. So for new hire costs, we can cover advertising, which could include advertising on LinkedIn, Monster, Indeed. We can also cover onboarding paperwork or the onboarding process, which could include the time that you take reviewing applications, conducting interviews, as well as the time of both you and the employee completing the onboarding paperwork. We can also cover the cost for training. So when you hire on someone new, they have to learn the culture of the company, as well as sometimes they have to take specific certifications and trainings. Like if I wanted to drive, maybe I do need defensive driver training, or if I'm working with confidential information, maybe I need personal identification, protection, security training, or also the training functions for the job itself, like how to run the cashier or the processes for taking phone orders or how to run that screen printing machine. We can cover the training costs for that individual. We can also cover up to the first month's wages, and that would include salary and any benefits, workers' comp, etc. The next is for learning and training programs. So this is kind of in line with that second goal commitment to create an full-time or part-time ongoing work experience opportunity or paid internship. And the business would be able to choose the length of duration that makes sense. So maybe they're near a school or something like that. Maybe they want to do 3 months because that's a semester, or they want to do 6 months, 12 months, etc. This funding can be used to create that paid internship. We can also cover physical location improvement. So this can include modification to doors or path of travel, like a wheelchair ramp installation or push button door openers. It could also include the installation of flashing fire alarms and other physical modifications. For example, we had a business that wanted to renovate their bathroom so that it could be ADA compliant. So it could be a physical location improvement as well. Now, the last one is barrier removal, which I know was kind of mentioned in Leslie's presentation, but this is a little bit different. So this is an opportunity to get creative and think outside the box, and kind of what segued in here for what Sheila had mentioned a few minutes ago is that anything that's a barrier to prevent an individual with a disability from being employed within your organization or just being employed in general, this is an opportunity to come in here as a barrier removal. So for example, if someone's having a problem with transportation or something like that, maybe a business could apply for bus passes, or maybe they could apply for paying for gas or mileage for one of their employees to get to and from work. Or for example, we had a business that wanted to hire a new driver, and they wanted for equipment, they wanted to buy a passenger van so that they could take their clients to and from their work site to their business, but they wanted us to cover the mileage for the first year for that transport vehicle. So this is an opportunity to get outside of the box and think about ways that we can help bring individuals with disabilities into that business's workforce. So key dates. The application for this funding is available now. We're asking for all applications to be submitted between now and December 31st of 2023, or until the funding runs out. So if we run out of the over $5 million, we'll stop applications at that point in time.
You froze on us again, Megan. Sorry.
We'll give her a minute here.
I just turned off my video maybe to help with the bandwidth in general.
Can you hear me?
You're back.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, all right.
So
So
just saying until the money runs out.
thank you so much. I'm like, it must be the weather. I don't know. Okay, so until the money runs out. So the applications are available now. And then, as I mentioned, the funding is available through June 30th of 2024. So we want to make sure that all the funding that's proposed gets completely spent, as this is a one-time appropriation of funds. So what's the process like? Well, you can check out our website, theemployabilityca.com, to get information that's needed to apply. Pretty soon there's going to be a page for resources, but it has information about the business grant, how to apply. It's going to have a sample application and all that good stuff. And then the application itself can be submitted via email. Then we're going to have a team of panelists. There's 5 panelists who will be reviewing the applications. And then once the applications are reviewed, I'll send out a notice of intent to award to the business owners. And then from there, we'll start working to create a final contract. Once in contract, businesses would be paid through reimbursement, and invoices could be submitted as often as monthly. All of any questions or invoices, etc., all of that information would go directly through me. So businesses really get a one-on-one opportunity to work with me directly for any questions that they may have. And because this is state funded, we have a unique opportunity where this application process is iterative. So I can work with businesses, answer questions, help them revise their application, things like that if needed. And then grant recipients will also need to submit quarterly reports just to verify that they're spending the funds as proposed and hiring individuals with disabilities or working toward that paid internship option. So the next one I wanted to talk about, this marketing campaign, is kind of the second element for this. So as an added bonus to these businesses that are going to be awarded the Employability Business Grant, we're putting $2 million aside for a marketed campaign to celebrate and highlight these grant recipients. We really want to spotlight that these are champions for disability inclusion and talk about the good things that the business is doing. And so we're adding this as an extra bonus that the businesses don't have to put into their proposal or pay for. We're just saying we're going to highlight the business and show what they're doing and the good work that they're doing to get their names out. All right, so I just want to run home really quick that we're really here to help. You can email dsci@dor.ca.gov for answers regarding the application process, or you can refer businesses, things like that. I'm really here to support hiring individuals with disabilities, and I'll put my my email address and my phone number in the chat as well. Feel free to reach out to me, and if there's any businesses that you're interested in sharing that with, please share my contact information as well. And I want to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present this information to you today. If you're interested in learning more, you can scan the QR code that's on the screen here, and that'll take you to our employabilityca.com website, where you can learn more information about the Employability Business Grant. And I'll go ahead and I'll pause here. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Megan, I have a question. Again, it's kind of like the question I asked earlier. Would a chamber be able to apply for one of these grants on behalf of its membership, like to get a consultant that would work with all of its businesses?
Good question. So right now we're saying that California small and medium-sized businesses can apply. So that would be an organization that has $10 million in assets or less. So a Chamber of Commerce may not necessarily qualify. But one of the things I'll also say is that when we look at the grand scheme of things, $20,000 to $200,000 is a lot for a small business, but when we're looking at consulting services for multiple organizations under one thing, that funding would run out really quickly. So I would recommend that the businesses apply directly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions regarding number 4 and number 6 on your PowerPoint. Number 4 being internships. I just want to clarify that work experiences that our participants do qualify as, well, maybe not internships, but under number 4 in your PowerPoint.
So you were wondering if work experience counts towards the learning and training programs?
Yes.
Yeah. So if the work experience is for a determined length of time and they're getting industry like recognized work experience, yeah, totally.
And then number 6, barrier removal. You mentioned gas mileage, bus tickets, and the incident where a business bought the passenger van. I've heard of organizations and businesses within the Bay Area offering BART tickets and ferry tickets for their employers. And Pride Industries in Vacaville ran into a situation where the public transportation got them right about a mile from the facility, and they had developed something with Lyft, where Lyft would ever so often, according to how their shift schedule landed, pick up individuals from the bus stop and deliver them to their work location. Is that something that would also be covered under the barrier remover number 6?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't see why not. We would just need to make sure that there's a monthly estimate or stipend for that. And it doesn't have to be transportation related either. We had a business that was interested in having uniforms altered because they didn't have uniforms that were small enough for one of their employees. So it doesn't have to be transportation, but that would work as well. Yeah, totally.
Guess I was stuck on the transportation.
Oh, no, I hear you. It's a good one. All right, so I know that we're at 9 o'clock now, and I want to be respectful of your time, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present. If anybody has any questions, I've put my contact information in the chat. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you or a business may have. So email me, call me. I'd be happy to talk.
Thank you, Department of Rehab. Great presentation, great information. We will make sure that we put this out to all of our members through the chamber. And thank you for all the board members that attended today's presentation as well. We could actually ask questions via email, right? You guys will get right back to us. I think you're going to get a lot of questions, especially with this grant. And Megan, we may have you come back and do another presentation for our employers as well.
Great. I'd be happy to. And I'll also send the deck slide that I have today to you, Susan, so you can share as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Great.
Have a great day.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody have a good day. Thanks. Yes, definitely. Do your duty. Bye. Take care. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.